And a conversation I have often with some business owners is you don't have to be big to be profitable. Profit is not a measure of size. There's gross revenue and then there's profit. What's in between is going to determine how much money you make. But it comes back to asking yourself what you value. One of the things that I value that I think is as important as currency, and I've done a couple shows on this, is relationships. To me, relationships are important. At the end of the day, take all my money from me, but if I've got good, close relationships, I'm fulfilled. Welcome back to another episode of Building Us. I am Erik Garcia, financial advisor, joined with my co-host, Dr. Matt Morris, family therapist. And today we have another guest, Dr. Ben Dichiara. Rather than me introduce him, I'm going to let him share a little bit about himself and his business. Ben?
Yeah, thanks guys for having me on. So I was born and raised in New Orleans. I went to LSU. After LSU, I went to Texas Chiropractic College in Houston, and I realized quickly how unique South Louisiana is. So I did my best to move back as fast as I could from Houston back to New Orleans. Yeah. I've been practicing in Metairie ever since. So I'm a husband, a father, and a sports chiropractor. So we focus on we see professional athletes all the way down to the weekend warrior. And everything in between. And so I just really enjoy the being able to help people, especially in a natural way. And so I've been practicing now for about 11 years, and it's been a great journey, and I'm looking forward to continuing that journey. So that's about it, man.
Now, Dr. Ben, help us out with some lingo here. We were trying to figure this out earlier. Is it chiropractic, chiropractics? What if somebody practices? What's the word that you use?
So chiropractic is not a word, Dr. Matt.
I just made that up.
So it's so chiropractic is the DC behind a name is the doctor of chiropractic. So I'm going to receive chiropractic care. Going to see my chiropractor.
Later today, you're going to practice
chiropractic.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
We were making up all kinds of,
let me, I want to take the fall for that. I don't want Matt, he's a doctor, and, with the doctors comes that prestige of high intelligence. That was a question that I asked Matt earlier. So Matt, I'll take the fall for that one, man. I'll own that one.
I didn't study that word in school, so I didn't know either.
I may say chiropractic.
That's okay. If only there was some search engine that you could type in something and it would give you the results of something that you were looking for,
Dude, somebody should come up with that.
Yeah, that's probably $1 million idea.
Next episode. Well, Dr. Ben, thank you. Welcome. Yeah. Thanks for being on the show. You mentioned that you do sports chiropractic work. With athletes and weekend warriors. I'm one of the weekend warriors who have also been a patient of yours and have benefited from your care. I know that a lot of there's a lingo in your field. The word adjustment gets used a lot. You need to adjust that, or you need an adjustment. So I want to kick off the show today with asking you all about an adjustment that you've had to make recently in your own attitude. So, it's been a rough summer. It's been a rough spring. What kind of attitude adjustment have you had to make?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And initially there was this, down here, of course, we have hurricanes. So I call it the hurricane mentality. When the quarantine started, it was kind of like, all right, let's get some booze and some chips, and we're going to hunker down for a couple days.
Some ice. Get some ice.
Get some ice. And, and then after 3 days, when the booze and the chips and the ice runs out, it's like, wait, we're still quarantined. And so the real adjustment was the mindset of, we were stressed. My wife and I were stressed out because we were home with the kids, but how many times have we prayed for margin, for time with the kids, so it was the things that we were hoping for. There was no gratitude. So it was really just changing, you hear the attitude of gratitude, and that's really what it was for us is changing the perspective and being able to pivot to say, even though this isn't ideal, and we didn't have to make the decision to shut down the clinic for a few weeks when everything first happened. And it was like, man, what a great opportunity to spend time with the kids. And so, like, I think most families, bike rides and the weather initially was like such a gift. I mean, it was beautiful weather. So spending time outside, that was the biggest adjustment, is just changing the mindset, you know?
Yeah. Eric,
Adjustment in
adjustments.
attitude. Oh my gosh, man. Like I feel like I have to adjust my attitude every single day. I think it's a constant battle, you know. Ben, you talked about coming back to New Orleans because it's such a great city, and I absolutely love the city, but it's not an easy city sometimes. It can be a hard city. So just I can't think of anything like a specific attitude adjustment, but I can say in general, there's this constant shift to remind myself that my attitude is really what's in my control. I can't control my clients' reactions. I can't control the stock market. I can't control, there's so much that's out of my control that all I can control is my own attitude, how I approach things, my own perspective. And if I approach it with a positive perspective, kind of that constant challenging of an attitude, then I'm going to set myself up for more success.
Yeah. It's really good.
You were looking for
appreciate
something
that.
really, you were looking for something like
Juicy.
something juicier. No, that's all I got. What about you? You can't get away asking us a question.
Thanks. Yeah. Attitude adjustment. I've always loved the summers of New Orleans. I like the heat. I like to sweat. But this summer has been really, really hot. And
Brutal.
so for me, it's been a challenging attitude adjustment, and that it's hard to embrace the summer this summer. But I have tried to get up most mornings and get outside before it's too hot, and get out before sundown in the evening, skateboard, ride my bike, go for a walk, something, just to move a little bit. So my attitude adjustment has been the middle of the day, I can just hang out inside. It's okay. It's okay.
It's even hot in the morning though, man. It is brutal in the morning.
It is. You got to you're going to sweat. You have to be, It's like a multi-shower season. You're going to take 2 showers a day. Minimum. So one of the things that I hear a lot from clients is trying to figure out a work-life balance. And that's really what I want to talk today, or spend the majority of our time talking today with Ben about how you found a work-life balance that works for you and your family. But kind of going back to something you were saying, Ben, is that the pandemic and shutdown and being home has given families a new opportunity to reconsider their work-life balance and their work life in balance to their home life. And so I think that a lot of people right now are adjusting their attitude about how their work life needs to look. And businesses are adjusting their attitudes about how frequently employees need to be in, or who can work from home, or who can't. And so I think there's a lot of adjusting going on right now about this work-life balance. And I'm really encouraging my clients that it's an opportunity, unlike few of us have seen in our work life, to shift some things in a really important and impactful way. And so that's really what I would like to talk to you guys about. In thinking about work-life balance, I've been at work now for a couple of decades. Some of my family members are just getting their first jobs. So it's got me thinking about one of my first jobs. My first job was at a little Mexican food restaurant where I cut onions and potatoes and delivered burritos. It was great. Loved it. What about you guys? What are some of your earliest employments?
Well, I'll jump in. One of my first jobs was actually construction. I was a laborer for a commercial construction company, and I probably have learned more from that. It was the summer, and I continued to work construction throughout while I was at LSU. But I learned more about life, accountability, responsibility on that first job than anything else. So that was a good one.
Yeah, maybe my favorite earliest job was lifeguarding. So I was a lifeguard at for Nord. So that was a fantastic summer job. It was so much fun.
What is the pool that you guarded at still there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at Berman in Algiers.
All right.
Nice.
Yeah.
So Eric, I lifeguarded for one summer, and they never asked me back after that, man. I wonder if I did. Maybe it was when I fell asleep on the in the chair. I was a little bit younger, man.
It was
attractive.
Great.
You're too attractive.
It was a lot of fun because like on there was a gym attached to the pool. So when the pool was closed, we were in the gym playing basketball. Man, I play basketball. You remember Herb Tyler, quarterback, LSU?
Yeah.
So Herb he's from Algiers. So he was in there. We'd be playing basketball. That guy could jump. Lord have mercy. He had some ups, dude. He was like way shorter than me and was dunking. It was like brutal. It's amazing.
So getting now back to our businesses now, and in particular, Ben, your business. Tell us a little bit about your business, your work, and also your kind of weekly work schedule.
Yeah, so we is Sports Chiropractic. I would call us hate to say not mom and pop, but my wife literally, she does everything on the back end. I'm in treatment and managing on the floor, but we have 5 employees, and our main, we have certain core values that over the years, one of the great books that helped me was it's called Traction by Gino Wickman. I don't know if you're familiar, and they he talks about having a vision, the mission statement, the vision, and going into specific core values, 1 year, 3 year, 5 year. And that really helped us to establish what are our core values? What do we want to be known for, not just in the chiropractic or healthcare world, but just in the business world. And so after several weeks, months even, of just back and forth with my wife and I just kind of figuring this out, we came up with the main 3 core values are service, integrity, and quality. And so we want all of our patients to know whether they're the professional athlete, the weekend warrior, or we'll see people that, everyone finds stuff on Google now. So people will say, I Googled you, you had great reviews, and I'm here. And, it's a 75-year-old grandma. And so we treat her like the athlete too, because her sport might be running around with the grandkids. And so we want to always provide a good service. We want to, as a staff member, a team member, do it with integrity. And then, of course, the quality should just speak for itself, that they know when they're coming in here, every patient is treated as if they're the only person here, and that there's nothing else that we as a team member, we train on. We step through the door of the office, home stuff, family stuff, that all falls down, and we're focused on the task at hand. So that I think is the best way that I'd sum it up.
Yeah, that sounds. What you're describing there is something I feel like I experienced as a patient there. I mean, I felt like it was the quality was excellent. I felt like the service was excellent. I feel like you guys are really aware of the people in your care and their needs. And I love that illustration about if whatever sport you play, if that's chasing the grandkids, that's your sport, and that's super important for that particular patient. So what about your, in thinking about work-life balance, I actually do want to talk a little bit about hours spent at work. So what is your work schedule?
So I'm glad you asked that. And I didn't finish it, but I used to work Monday through Sunday. And when I first started, I worked for another company that it was just hours and a lot of driving. And so, when I established, we went on our own and established Allied Chiropractic and Wellness. We really wanted to have a work-life balance. Actually, my wife Ashley and I did. But I also recognized, and it might have been Traction, it might have been Good to Great, Jim Collins, but there's a difference between starting a business and then sustaining a business. And so, when we were starting, it was like, hey, I have to set up the software, and the tutorial is going to last until midnight. And so it just is what it is. There's an event on Sunday morning I have to be there at 5 a.m. to set up because I'm stretching the athletes after the race, whatever it is. But so some things have changed as the kids have gotten older. We added another baby to the mix. And so all those things, it's not sustainable if it's going to mean me taking time away from, I can't go to my son's basketball game because I'm working until 7 o'clock every single night. That's not, maybe for some people that is sustainable, but not for me. So the long answer to your question is I used to work an evening clinic hours Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. And since then, we do Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, full days, so 8 to 5. But we come in early and stay a little late as patients, come and go at different times. Tuesdays, we're here from 2 to 5, but there's some housekeeping that's done there. And Fridays that we don't see patients. But of course, as a business owner, you guys know you're never off the clock. And so there's always something about what can we do? If you're not working in the business, you're working on the business. But as far as clinic hours go, we're Monday through Thursday, and we're 8 to 5. And we've had some patients or even people like, oh man, what are you doing? Fishing? Are you playing golf? Are you doing those things? And, it's never, because we're still putting in the hours. If we added them up, probably close to 50 hours a week still.
You're operating a business on those other times, right? You're networking, you're finding new clients, you're building out systems and processes, or you're continuing your education, you're right. It doesn't stop. So you mentioned traction a couple times, and that's perfect timing, because by the time people hear this show, they will have heard another show of another business owner who is a big EOS fan, big traction fan.
Yeah.
And it's a book that's influenced me. And one of the things, what I really like that Gino Wickman talks about in that book is sometimes it's important to build internally or grow internally before you can grow externally. And you talked about building systems and having systems in place, right? And then you're seeing clients only 3 days a week. It seems like there's some intentionality to be able to get to that point. So I'm curious, talk a little bit about you just didn't say, I'm just going to work Monday, or I'm just going to see patients on these 3 days. Talk about some of the intentionality that went behind the scenes to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's really good. So I'll take you back 5 years, making a very prayerful decision to leave the company that I had started with since I graduated to kind of go out on my own. And I definitely, I'm a strong believer in God, and the plans that he has for us are better than the plans that we have for ourselves. And so I believe that I was called to kind of go out on my own. And so the way that any decision that's made in the business, it's made getting into in the scripture, reading the Bible, and then seeking good godly counsel on the best ways to go about that. And so with that being said, a good friend of mine who's much further along in his faith, about 3 years ago, said, man, it would be great to have a satellite clinic. And my wife and I had been talking about opening up another clinic. Man, we've been in Metairie for a couple of years, and we were living on the North Shore of Lake Pontchartrain for listeners outside of Louisiana. So we're on the North Shore of the lake, 45 minutes away from Metairie Clinic. And he said, man, it'd be great. You've established relationships network. So we opened up the satellite clinic in a couple of years after opening up the Metairie Clinic. Well, it went from, I was working 5 days a week, but I had some margin built in. So I would go in late on some days and leave early on some days so we could work on the business when we weren't working in it. And what that did is that opening up the satellite clinic ate up any margin that I had. And so not only did it eat up my day, but I got home and my wife and my kids were getting my leftovers. And so what ended up happening is we opened up the satellite clinic, we had a third baby, and we moved into a house that needed renovations. And so 3 major things all at once. And I think that it was very humbling, because I don't think anyone ever says, well, I'm a prideful person, and so I don't think of myself as being prideful, but I think innately, maybe it's just humankind, mankind in general, I was prideful in the sense of, man, I got that. I put her on my back and I'm going to carry the team and we're good. And you know what? I did that for probably about a year and it almost killed me. I mean, I was exhausted. There was no, you talk about work-life balance, Matt, that there was no work-life balance.
No balance.
There was no balance at all. So, that's when another buddy, another very godly man, he let me know, and he sat down with me and said, what would be the cost of you closing down the satellite clinic? And I'm thinking numbers. So I start running numbers. And I'm like, well, the revenue is this. And he stopped me. He said, I'm not talking about numbers. What's the cost? If you keep the clinic open, what does the relationship with your wife look like? What does the relationship with your kids look like? Your other family, friends? But if you close it down, then what does that look like for the job, the clinic, and that sort of thing? And that was the first time that, that everything comes with a cost was the biggest thing that came out of that. And I always go back to that. That was probably 2-3 years ago now that we had that conversation, and everything comes with a cost.
It cost you to work. It cost you to not work. It cost you to be at home. It cost you to be at work.
Exactly.
Everything comes with a cost. And you went through a process, it sounds like, of really evaluating those costs. And it sounds like your family was having to pay that cost in some way.
Yeah, and I justify it, Matt, by, saying, well, I'm providing for them and they're going to appreciate this later. And another interesting thing happened when I was halfway through in a satellite clinic. We'd been open for about a year, and I met, this is such a divine appointment. An older chiropractor reached out to me, said, hey, I'd love to have lunch with you. I saw you just opened up a clinic. And so I had lunch with 3 chiropractors that had been practicing. One was like 20 years, and the other was 30. I think the other one was like 35. And all of them said, the one question I had for them was, what was one thing, looking back over your decades of experience, that you could change? And all 3 of them in one way said, I wish I hadn't been worried about the numbers at work, and I wish I had spent more time with my family. And one of them had, kind of an estranged relationship with his son, who was now in his 30s. And it was such a cool, like a glimpse into the future of, hey, if you stay on this track, on this road, and you're going, you may be able to afford all the things you could ever want, but at what cost?
Yeah, I get to just in conversations with older clients, I hear a lot of them say, if I only knew now what I knew 20 years ago, particularly when it comes to saving. So I sit here just as an individual myself, I'm sitting here like, oh, I get to learn lessons from all these people. Like, what are those things? What would you have wished if you could talk to yourself 20 years ago? What would you have told yourself? It's always interesting. So John Rockefeller was asked once. This is anecdotal. No one really knows if it's true or not, but he's one of the richest men in all of history. He was asked how much money is enough, and his response was just a little bit more.
That's right.
And I think for business owners, where we know that we could put more work in and generate more income, it's being able to say, what is enough? How much is enough? That's a hard question to ask sometimes.
Yeah, and I guess this is a question for both of you. You're both entrepreneurs. You're both balancing work and home well. But culturally, a lot of men get the message that their value as a person is connected to their work, is connected to their income. A lot of men kind of adopt the idea that my way of contributing to my family is to be out there working and earning an income. And so my contribution is the amount of money I can put in the bank account. And so if you really get hooked into that idea, it's never enough. It's bottomless. I mean, you can always put more dollars into the bank account because you can always spend more money on stuff. You can always get a nicer boat, if you will. But you guys as entrepreneurs, how do you balance, needing to earn an income, needing to put money in the bank account for your family, but also that less monetary, that less concrete, that less tangible cost or that less tangible contribution of the investment you're making in your family? How do you balance those?
That's good. Eric, you want to go first?
I'll let you go, man. I want to hear from you. Yeah, I want to hear from you. I want to learn from you. I only want to work. I just want to work 3 days a week too, man. I want to learn from you. Come on.
Oh man. Here we go. So I think that it's back to the everything comes with a cost, and it's biblically, what good is it for a man to gain the whole world and lose his soul? Or you can put that, what good is it for a man to gain the whole world and lose his wife, or to lose the love of his children, or to lose his health, or you could go on and on and on with. It truly is, Matt, you're talking about the money thing. It's a bottomless pit, and so when is enough? I think that where you put your treasure is where you put is where your heart is, and so if we're so focused on strictly money, you could make all the money in the world and it still wouldn't be enough. So I guess to answer the question, and if I'm answering it incorrectly, let me know, but it's the investment time with the family, especially if it's intentional, to me pays dividends, and the work side is going to take care of itself. And I think back to that time with the satellite clinics. We didn't take a family vacation for it was about a year and a half. And I just kind of sat back and was like, man, the whole year or plus went by with no vacation. And my wife was like, yeah. And the kids were a year older. Everything was 1 year removed, and we hadn't done that because I hadn't been intentional. I was more intentional with work than I was with my own family. And that was a real punch in the gut. Because when I take a vacation, it's not just the money that it costs for the vacation, that we have to shut down the clinic. And so in the back of my head, the business side is like, what about the money that you're losing? But I believe that, again, that if I'm intentional with my family and I'm doing the right thing, that God redeems that time, and that it ends up being okay on the back end.
Yeah, I think that it's really setting out priorities and values. Just asking yourself, what do you value? Because if you value, and again, we get a lot of messages, especially as business owners. You read a book like Traction, you read a lot of this entrepreneurial stuff, and what our culture will champion is growth. What our culture champions is big successful businesses with employees. And a conversation I have often with some business owners is, you don't have to be big to be profitable. Profit is not a measure of size. There's gross revenue, and then there's profit. And what's in between is going to determine how much money you make. But it comes back to asking yourself what you value. Like, one of the things that I value that I think is as important as currency, and I've done a couple shows on this, is relationships. To me, relationships are important. At the end of the day, take all my money from me, but if I've got good, close relationships, then I'm fulfilled. And then you start to think of, okay, what relationships are important, and am I pouring into those and building those? I've never heard anyone say, I wish I would have worked harder, right? That they're facing death, right? I wish I would have worked harder. I wish I would have made more money. It's always the opposite, like you said, Ben, or some of the mentors that you've had have said. It's focus on your family. There's a really interesting podcast called How I Built It. It's a Guy Raz. I think it's on NPR. And there's an episode I remember vividly listening to. It was an entrepreneur, and I think it's the guy who, those carved fruit, like you can order like carved fruit in different shapes and stuff.
Yeah.
Like a fruit bouquet.
Fruit bouquet. Yeah. So this guy built this amazing business, and he's just talking about the growth that he had, and he's sharing along the way how he sacrificed his family, he sacrificed his marriage, and he wasn't talking about it like, I built this business and sacrificed my marriage. It sounded like a little bit of brokenness, but still like championing this idea of this big business. And I'm sitting here thinking like, man, was it worth it? Like, I wish I could jump in and ask that question. Was it worth it?
Yeah.
So I think we need, number one, to surround ourselves with people who are going to keep us accountable and ask us those questions and who know us. But you're right, Matt, like as men, the messages we're getting from our culture is bigger is better, make more money, success is money, wealth is success.
Yeah, and it's from afar, it's kind of easy to quantify success as being material goods. If you can look at your neighbor and they have something new and shiny, it looks successful. But it's much harder to quantify healthy relationships and the quality of the relationships in the home. And just to kind of put a fine point on that, as a family therapist, I often work with clients who have tons of money and whose homes are awful or crappy or miserable or full of distress or full of discontent or full of contempt. Um, money does not buy relationship success by any means. And in my practice, I've been at this for a while, so I've had the experience of working kind of at the lower end of the money scale and at the upper end of the financial echelon. And man, distress is all throughout that. Health is all throughout that as well. Money does not correlate well with healthy relationships. And so if you're an entrepreneur like we are, and we are kind of driven towards building and growing and making, it sounds like all of us value also building and growing and making and strengthening relationships along the way, and not to sacrifice any of that to make a little bit more money.
So I've got a question for both of you. So as business owners, as people who know that if we put more time in, we can make more money. So as we're seeking this idea of work-life balance, do you plan your time? Do you kind of look at your budget, if you will, and say, hey, I need to generate X amount of dollars for the household. If we're going to be able to fund all of our priorities, all of our bills, all of our goals, I need to work X amount, and kind of work your way back from there and see if it works out. Is that kind of how you approach it?
Yeah, I think that, and I've been listening to a couple of y'all's podcasts before coming on. I think one of the things that y'all are hitting on that I realized going through my wife and I did Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University, it was the best marriage. It's a financial seminar workbook. It was the best marriage thing we ever did. So agreeing on that.
Yeah.
So yeah, Eric, to answer the question, we do. We sit down and we say, here's our fixed cost, and then here's what we want to do with a vacation or these other maybe investments, whatever it is, and then we back out from there. What's reasonable, basically, but that's come with time, and we weren't always like that. So I think it's back to the intentionality of that. So we do that, but it doesn't always translate into we have to work this many more hours to make this much money. It's we don't equate money with happiness. And so it's kind of like, what are our goals reasonably, and then putting together some sort of blueprint or plan to achieve that.
Yeah, I used to do that a little bit more than I do now. I will still look at like the household budget, or what our fixed costs are, what we need to make, and figure out where that money's going to come from. That money doesn't all come now directly from my work, where it used to be a little bit more dependent on the hour I spent in the office with a client. It's a little less that. One thing I think I can say, though, is that I tried to be really faithful to earning the amount of money my family needed, but not getting crazy about trying to earn a whole lot more. So earn what we needed and try to be faithful to that. And every year, new or different opportunities came along that I didn't see coming, I didn't budget for, I didn't plan for, that were additional revenue streams that have padded that budget somewhat, or created more margin, or created more opportunity. So I used to do that a little bit more tightly, and today it's not quite as dependent on my own hours, which is nice too.
Yeah, something I'm hearing from both of y'all, which I think is super important. This is a conversation I have regularly, is you got to align what you do with your money with what you value. Ben, you said your treasures are where your heart is, and so often I see people are doing things with their money that doesn't align with what they really want to accomplish. But yet there's still, whether it's bad habits or bad decisions or whatever it may be, lack of good counsel. There's this misalignment. Here we go. We go back to a good chiropractic term.
Yes, no.
There's this misalignment, right?
Chiropracticness.
They're misaligned. And sometimes they're not even aware of it.
Right.
And it creates problems in relationships that Matt needs to correct.
Realign.
Realign,
well,
right?
One thing that I think is very interesting, and I've tried to be better about as I've just throughout life, is learning from others, their mistakes, but also their successes. And so there's been a few cautionary tales and really, I mean, my parents were divorced. I was 15. And it was for several reasons, but one of which was finances. And I think that there were just different values. But I have a lot of friends that are my age and even some that are younger that are either already divorced or are kind of in that process. And I think that it comes back to the values, but then also being content. Like Matt, you talked about when you're sitting down with couples and you have all the money in the world, but there's discontent there. And so it just, again, it boils down to what's more important. What are you going to be able to take with you when you leave this life, right? There's not a U-Haul behind the hearse, right? I mean, that's
there should be. There should be.
You'd like that. I'm daring me.
I got a lot of cool stuff. Yeah.
all your CDs,
That's right.
So.
Yeah, Ben, shifting topics a little bit. I know we've been talking about balancing work and home and thinking about, the cost to your family of you working more, but you also have some other stakeholders in that you have, you mentioned 5 employees earlier. And so how do you balance as an entrepreneur, business owner? It sounds like you're very thoughtful. You try to be very wise about all this. It sounds like you're aware of the needs of lots of different people. How do you balance the needs of your employees along with all of this other kind of balancing?
Well, I think that comes from the experiences I've had in the past, specifically with the more of a corporate feel with the job that I was at before, where it really wasn't about the people, whether it was the patients or the employees. It was all about the bottom line, which was the dollar. And unfortunately, what I saw was a lot of burnout and a lot of turnover. And that was one of the things that, even coming out of school, not knowing anything about anything, high rate of turnover in a business seemed to be bad. And I know now is usually a sign that there's the health of the business is at risk. So taking that experience and realizing that they're not just a worker or a staff member, but they're maybe a wife or a daughter, a brother, so really looking at the person as a whole and understanding that, I mean, realistically, if you didn't get a good night's sleep, then the next day is probably not going to be your best day. Or if you were feeling under the weather, or, so understanding that they're not just a body in the clinic for however many hours a day, but they're also a soul and they have other needs that need to be met. So being sensitive to that, I'm very thankful for my wife because she is much more sensitive and in tune than I am. I'm more of a D personality on the disc, like let's just push. And she's like, no, hold on, let's just, so she's a lot of grace, and I've learned to extend more of that. So I think that's been the biggest key, and treating really every team member like family, whether it's treating them like a little sister or a little brother. And that, if you think about how would you want your children or your brother or sister to be treated, and that's the angle that we approach it from.
Mm-hmm. Hey, just I want to shift gears a little bit. One of the things that we have been talking to business owners about and want to continue to talk about is the effect of COVID and the pandemic on your business. And, we're kind of calling it the COVID pivot or the COVID shuffle. We're thinking about
not to be confused with the Cupid shuffle.
That's good.
We'd like to come up with a dance.
Please.
We're working on a dance.
Please.
But in terms of the COVID pivot, what changes did your business have to make? What was your COVID experience?
Well, as you know, in chiropractic and we're also incorporating rehab, massage, stretches, different things. So we're hands on. So there's no remote working. But we took the precautions. We pulled everything out of the clinic. So when everything in end of March, flattened the curve, and we were considered essential, so we didn't have to shut down, but we felt it our responsibility because we were in Jefferson on the Orleans Parish line, and it was it was a hot spot. You remember when everything first kind of happened out here, and so we shut down we were going to do 2 weeks. We decided to do 4 weeks, and so we pulled everything out and we just sanitized everything. We spread out a lot of the equipment so that there was no cross contamination. So we did all the things in terms of ramping up the cleaning frequency and things like that. But I think that, because people even now, 4 or 5 months later, are very anxious about touching or hands-on, or should we stay at home? What should we do? One of the pivots that we've recently talked about is being able to educate not just our patients, but also we'll do outside events, maybe for teachers, family that are teachers or different things on what you can do to help support your immune system during this time. The masks and the stay home, the isolation is one part of helping to control the spread, but because COVID seems to be ubiquitous at this point, it's not if, but when we're going to come into contact with it. So how can we educate and help on how to build the immune system? So the pivot for us, the conversation, the narrative is not about, hey, you're not going to get COVID if you do all these things. Like there's a good chance you're going to come in contact with it. How will your body be able to deal with it? And helping people that way.
One pivot then is producing some educational materials in some form or fashion that help educate your clientele and others, potential future clientele, about protecting themselves while we all try to stay safe.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So you were closed for 4 weeks, so I imagine that you were home a lot more. How did that affect your work-life balance while you're not at work?
I never loved work more. I never wanted to be at work. just when the alcohol ran out at home. I'm just kidding.
You make excuses to go to work?
After 3 days.
After 3 days. I'm like, all that paperwork. I was going 35 miles an hour.
For the record, that is not the way to be able to fight and not catch COVID by drinking all your alcohol in 3 days, Ben.
That is true. And I can't confirm or deny that happened, Eric, but the work-life balance was, of course, shifted at that point. But I did find myself very thankful, back to the attitude of gratitude. All the things that bothered me about work, all of a sudden did bother me, because all I wanted to do or hope for was open back up. Because as y'all know, bills are always going out. Money's always going out. Bills have to be paid. When you don't have anything coming in, it's very, it can be very scary. So I'm very thankful that we were able to rebound, and I'm very thankful that we were able to open back up and do what we're doing.
Yeah. I think we're all grateful for the work that we can do at this point. Acknowledging not everybody has those opportunities, and just very thankful for the ability to be at home, the ability to slow down, the ability to reconfigure our schedule to some extent, but definitely the ability to still have income and make some money. As we're wrapping up, I want to give you the opportunity, when you're thinking about work-life balance, the business that you've built, the home that you've built, the marriage that you built. What are you most proud of as an entrepreneur, business owner, but also a husband and a dad? What are you most proud of in terms of your work-life balance? You've made some very strategic choices about when to be in the office and when not to be in the office. What are you most proud of with that?
I think the biggest thing, well, at the house, and of course I could be better with all of these things, but being intentional with each individual. My ages of my kids are kind of spread out. teenager, 7-year-old, and 2-year-old. And so really being able to take the teenager, hey, we're going to go do this together. The 7-year-old, hey, we're going to go do that together. And then with my wife, like just literally saying, hey, we're going to get a hotel room for just one day so that you don't have to worry about anything at home, the kids, and we're going to get a sitter, or we're just going to do, and we've done that before. And it's amazing how you can be able to reconnect in those 12 or 20 hours of just not having to worry about cutting the grass, doing the dishes. So the intentionality and making memories with them. And then as far as work goes or in the business, really just, we always say we want to do it the right way. So I talked about those core values, but also the niche. We talk about, we want everyone to know, all patients to know that we care, we listen, and we get results for them. And so what that entails is that if someone comes in and whatever it is, again, they're the most important person there at that time, no matter what else is going on. So that boils down to doing it the right way. They're not just a number. They're not just a dollar. They're a person. And so if we can't help them, then we refer them out. And so some people in the business world might say, well, dude, you're certainly not, if you're not seeing patients, you're not making money. But if we send that patient somewhere else and they got more help than we could give them, then we did the right thing. And so I think that, again, God honors that. And so that would be regarding the work-life balance, looking into being able to hire another chiropractor so that I don't have to be tied to the business all the time. And being able to cut it off, when work stays at work and when I'm at home, I can give them 100%.
Yeah. So I want to go ahead and change the topic here. Just as we wrap up, because I know that you have patients to see, because this is one of your days where you see, this is like one of the days you work.
This is one of the few days when, I'm not.
Man, I just met you. And this is rough, man, huh?
He makes fun of my work schedule too. It's all envy is really what it is.
Is that what it is, man?
It's funny. Everyone says that I don't work, so I don't. It's just kind of we're just three guys who don't work.
Look, a day in the life. Ask Matt, man. My day starts at 4 a.m, and so right. I love it. I love it.
This could be like bring your friend to work day. So next Wednesday, I'm going to go to work with Ben, and then you can come to work with me on Friday.
I love it.
So you two met each other doing CrossFit. Okay. Yeah. So about a year and a little over a year ago, my back, I had terrible back. I hurt myself playing football in high school, and then every so often, like it just comes back, and it's terrible pain. And for about like 7 months, like I was just fighting lower back pain. Went to the chiropractor, went to physical therapy, and realized that I needed to do something else. I need to get back into getting fit. So I just literally just joined CrossFit about a year ago. And I was against CrossFit for so long because it just seemed like such a brutal sport, if you will. So you're a chiropractor. CrossFit's rough, man. Like it can be rough. So talk to me a little bit as we close out. Just how do we stay safe doing CrossFit and not injure ourselves?
That's a great question. I get asked that question a lot, and it's funny because before I found CrossFit, I was doing some half marathons, training for a full marathon, some triathlons, and trying to extend the distance to do a full Ironman. And I kept getting injured in the 26.2 mile distance, and then when I would go over certain mileage on the bike or in the pool. And so it's interesting because you could talk to 100 different doctors about CrossFit and get 100 different opinions. The same thing in any other sport. And so when I started CrossFit, a lot of people are like, "Oh man, I bet you love CrossFit because you have so many injuries and people come to see you." And I tell everyone the same story, man. When I was doing triathlons and marathons, I saw a lot of runners and a lot of triathletes. And doing CrossFit, I see CrossFit mainly because they know that we're going through the same suffering. And if they're going to explain that they can't do a snatch, then they know that I understand what a snatch is. So to answer your question, you have to make sure that you're your function and foundationally you're at as close to your 100% as you can be optimally performing. So I think that in trying to correlate it to maybe something in the financial world, if someone can't balance their budget, their checkbook, you're probably not going to be talking to them about any sort of in-depth, maybe investments or 401k. And, there's foundational, fundamental things that have to be correct. And in the CrossFit world, Eric, you got to be able to move properly before you can load. If you start loading and adding weight and you're moving improperly, then that's a recipe for disaster. So if you're sitting at your desk all day and then you try to go max effort on your deadlifts and you're not warming up or stretching, you're going to get hurt.
Yeah, that's something that I've noticed is what you see on TV. You see on TV is not necessarily what you get in the gym. It's almost like me saying, "Hey, y'all want to go play football this weekend? Look at the kids," and you're like, "Yeah." You don't have a picture of your mind of the Saints versus Atlanta. You have we're gonna be at the park. We might have flags. We might do 2-hand touch. That's what you're picturing. But for some reason, when I say CrossFit, you're thinking like flipping tires and
arm and ropes, and
kipping chin-ups, which I feel like someone's arms are going to fall off sometimes when I watch them do that. But that's not what you actually get when you go to the gym. It's so scalable. Exactly. I know for me, since I've been doing it, I actually hurt less. I mean, I hurt intentionally.
Good hurt,
right?
Yeah. Sore. You're sore.
It's the cost. It goes back. There's a cost to everything. Do I want to hurt because I have no choice but to hurt, or do I want to hurt and I want to choose the way that I want to hurt by working out and strengthening?
That's it.
Eric.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Ben.
I was just going to say, I know I mentioned a couple of books. One of my favorites, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and Stephen Covey talks about the quadrant of, it's urgent or emergent. He uses health, actually. So if you're not urgent about your health, like if you're not in the gym working out, doing things, then it could be months, years, or decades later. It's going to be an emergent situation because you're going to have a heart attack or you're going to have some sort of cholesterol. So you're doing the things now to set yourself up for success later on. And so, man, Eric, I want to encourage you in the gym, man, continue pressing in, continue doing those things. And then one day we might see you on ESPN, man, lifting heavy things. Huh?
I watch the CrossFit Games, and every time the commentator, there's like an athlete who's 6'3", and the commentator always says, "Man, this is a hard workout for a tall guy." Well, he's doing really good for a tall guy. So CrossFit favors the short. So that's how I get around. I can't do that exercise. I'm too tall.
It's a built-in excuse. It's great.
Yeah, I'm too tall.
That's great. My CrossFit story, you mentioned Ben and I met at CrossFit. Ben, you were actually the first person at the gym that came up and introduced yourself to me and like welcomed me. And that made all the difference for me. That felt like, okay, I can come here. I can come back again.
Sweet.
So
that's nice.
That was really helpful.
That. Dude, I appreciate that. The community, and Eric, I'm sure you've experienced that too. That's one of the best things about CrossFit. No doubt about it. No doubt.
Yeah, Matt's talking about the COVID pivot. Our gym, when lockdown happened, we started home workouts, and our gym owner broke the gym up into squadrons, and each squadron had teams. So team leaders, I was a team leader. Each team was responsible for 4 or 5 people on their team to do the workouts, and we had weekly challenges that were outside of the workout. And so the community's big, and that's the thing. The reason I joined a gym was because I was at one of the $10 a month gyms, and I never went. It was I had no accountability.
Exactly, that's the word, the accountability. That's amazing.
Well, we're all trying to figure out this work-life balance, and the last few minutes we've been talking about the importance of our own health and I do really think about that as part of my work-life balance. As a counselor, I sit all day long, and so I think about my body needs to be in shape to sit comfortably for a long time. If I'm going to be sitting for a long time, I need to be stretched out and exercised in a way that I'm going to be comfortable. And then also, I think about, I have a growing family, and I want to be able to snowboard with them for a long time and run with them for a long time. and chase them around for a long time. And so part of me going to the gym every day, part of having that process in the system of getting to the exercise facility regularly is it because it aligns with my values of being able to do my work well and to be able to chase my kids, to be able to beat them in tennis and stuff like that. That's really what I want.
Yeah, you don't want the young bucks, in your household trying to think that they can beat you at things and puffing out their chest. Sometimes you got to take the knees out, man. Sweep the leg.
Yeah. Take them down. Sweep the leg. So this show, as you all know, is all about building us, and part of building us is enjoying our work, but balancing it with enjoying our home and feeling at peace and feeling productive in both places. I mean, what a goal to aspire to, is being able to be productive and peaceful in the locations in which you're at. So that's all part of building us. Erik, you have any closing words?
Yeah. Just kind of, Ben, it's been great. This is the first time that we actually exchange verbal words. We've exchanged a couple emails, and it's I'm always happy to meet new people who I know can have an influence in my own life that I can learn from. It's always fun. It's that as iron sharpens iron, right? We make each other better. We make each other stronger. And a couple of things that I took away from the things that you said were, number one, intentionality. Like you seem to be very intentional. The fact that you only see patients 3 times a week is because you put work in to be intentional. Very purposeful, I think, is important. And everything comes back down to a plan, is that you took the time to have a plan, and now you're just executing your plan. And that takes work, and that takes leadership, that takes persistence. But then the kind of the final thing that I love, just kind of in your stories, is the accountability, or the people who spoke into your life, who challenged you, who mentored you. I like to say there's wisdom in the counsel of many, right? Seeking advice and seeking counsel is good. Obviously, as a financial advisor and financial planner, I believe this. When people seek me out, that's a good thing. When people seek Matt out as a therapist, that's good. When people seek out a chiropractor for their health, that's a good thing. So that accountability that's surrounding yourself. So thanks, man. Thanks for sharing your story. Appreciate that.
Man, thank y'all for having me. And I just want to, again, say that what y'all are doing here to marry the couples to the financial side, I mean, it's I don't know if it's a hole, a gap, but I listen to, how y'all started and everything. It's amazing. So I hope God continues to bless y'all. Y'all are doing wonderful, wonderful work. And so thank you for the opportunity and for having me on. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, man. And listen to our listeners, if you need great chiropractic care, Allied Chiropractic and Wellness in Metairie is a wonderful place. If you like some of the core values that he was talking about, like service, integrity, results, check him out. Dr. Ben, it's been great to befriend you, to become friends with you, to be a patient of yours, and to have you on the podcast. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks.
And as we always say, invest in your relationships. It's all about building us.
Man, thank y'all so much, guys.
Dr. Matt Morris maintains an active private practice for couples and families in the greater New Orleans area. To learn more about his work, visit drmattmorris.com. Erik Garcia can be found online at plan-wisely.com. His branch office is located in New Orleans, Louisiana. The branch phone number is 504-218-5479. Securities offered through Royal Alliance Associates Incorporated, member FINRA, SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through New Century Financial Group, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Insurance services offered through Garcia Financial Group, LLC. Entities listed are not affiliated.